I did it. I stained it. I think it turned out really well. I just took a paper towel and rubbed the stain on and then dried it off with another paper towel. I didn't stain the inside because no one's going to see the inside, right? But that mentality sort of means that I missed some of these parts where they kind of cross between inside and outside. I don't know if those are going to be visible against the dials and stuff that stick out. If it's a problem, I'll go back and touch it up. But I think it looks nice. I sprayed it with a couple of coats of like a polyurethane protecting layer, whatever you call it, to protect against sweaty hands, I guess. I don't want to do too many coats of that though, because I don't want it to be so shiny that I can see myself. I like to have a little bit of texture on it so it feels like wood. I think it looks good. Next thing I need to do is, I went ahead and wired the battery up to the board because I just wanted to see if it would work. I haven't tried to turn it on since I trimmed the board down. So this is a temporary setup because you can't charge it this way. I just wired the battery straight up to the board, and it does work. It turns on, and here's a demonstration. And something I did with the power switch, I did this a while back, but I don't think I talked about it. I took a DMG power switch and cut off everything that wasn't this, the visible part on top that sticks out the top of a normal complete Game Boy, and I just glued it to that power switch. It can be tricky. If anyone's following along at home, my advice would be to glue it on with a glue that's strong but not too strong. Strong but you can break it. I have some old super glue which works really well. It's not as strong as new super glue. So I glue it on there, and it's strong enough that I can switch it back and forth and see if it looks straight. And if it doesn't look straight, I can break it off and re-glue it and see if I can get it centered. And then once it's good, once it's nice and centered, then you put the epoxy on there and really seal it good. So this, I need to put the charge board in there. Here's my charge board. The micro USB ones still haven't come in the mail. They should have come by now. So I have to decide if I'm going to be patient and maybe try to order some more or what. But something I might do is I have these micro USB jacks or ports. I don't know what to call it. And I might just solder some wires directly from this onto this charge board and just use that. I thought about even having both ports on there, both the mini USB and the micro USB, so I could charge it with either one. It might be kind of cool, but I'll probably just go with micro. I have to decide if I'm going to be patient or if I'm going to do something like that. So I'll have to wire the battery to the board and then the board to the Game Boy. What do you think? I think it looks great. I'm really happy with how that looks. I think I've seen, this is a glass lens, and I think I've seen ones that are the darker Play It Loud color. I might look into that, but I think it looks really nice the way it is right now. I decided to be impatient. I don't know if I'm ever going to get those micro USB charge boards in the mail, or if something happened to them, so I went ahead and took a micro USB jack and a mini USB charge board. And as you can see, it took me a few tries. For some reason, I thought that I was doing everything right, but I would end up bridging the input power and ground so that it, plugging it in didn't charge the battery at all. It just heated the board up a lot. And but the third time worked. I was really careful. I tried to go for the idea of if you have to cut down a tree, that you should spend most of your time sharpening your axe so that when it's time to do it, it goes really smoothly and easily. Here's sort of a simulation of how I did these solder points, or these tabs on the micro USB jack are really tiny, and there's 5 of them all in a row. The middle 3 I was able to bend back because those are for data. But the idea here is that I take my little helping hands grabber arm thing, put the micro USB jack in one clamp, and the wire that I'm soldering onto it in the other one, tin the wire with solder, put flux on everything, position it just exactly where I need it to go, and take all the time I need to make sure that it's exactly where it needs to go, so that when it's time to solder and it's time to do something that's potentially irreversible, all I have to do is just touch it right there and just melt it real quick. Doesn't heat anything else up, and it goes exactly where I needed it to. So I tried to do that for all these solder points. I already used hot glue. I already secured everything in place, so I can't easily show you what I did. I added some extra wires in so that the soldering would be really easy and that I wouldn't burn the wood trying to solder. I did have to kind of cross the way that I had it in there. I wanted the LEDs here for charging and done charging to be facing down, so I could cut a hole in the back of the wood to show it. And so just the way that I cut the hole for the USB jack, I had to cross the wires over to be... Anyway, the hole, this hole, I decided to use just hot glue to try and diffuse the light, and it works really well. I'll show it to you a little bit later after I've secured this jack a little bit better. It has to really withstand a lot of pressure, a lot of force to plug in and out of a USB cable, especially doing it a whole lot of times. So once I get a chance to just epoxy the living daylights out of that, when it's really strong and secure, then I'll show you how good that light looks. The thing that I need to do now, so on this board, this one's good because on the underside it shows you where's the input and where's the output. I didn't have to solder the micro USB jack to the tiny little points that the mini USB jack was using, because those are bridged with these nice big solder pad through holes for in positive and in negative or ground. So that's where the jack hooks up to, and then the battery positive and negative hook up to both the battery and the Game Boy PCB. So that's all hooked up and working. I've tested it. The thing I'm working on next is I need to secure this headphone. I used hot glue to attach everything because it's temporary if I need to move stuff, but it's strong enough to hold it in place. And so I put some glue on this board and the battery and the charge board. So I thought about just using hot glue on this headphone board and all that. But kind of the same idea as the USB jack, this has to be really strong so that you can yank your headphones out without worrying about jarring that loose. So what I'm playing with now is putting some of these screw posts from my donor Game Boy shell and kind of doing the same thing that I did with the you can't see it now, with the board on this side. Just kind of put the screw through the screw post, position this where it needs to go, and epoxy the screw post in place so that this board will be attached with screws to the shell like it is in the original plastic one. That way it'll be nice and strong and you can plug your headphones in and out without having to worry about it. Then after that, the only thing I have left to do is put magnets in so I can close it and have it stay shut. And so I've sort of cut away already a spot right here at the top. You can see on the board there's a nice empty spot on the board where there's no components there, so I could cut that away and the magnet will fit in there. And it would be good maybe to have 3 magnets, pick 3 spots on there, some way to have it be nice and secure. So it's about done. I got the magnets on there, and I'll talk about how I did that. The first step is to just put some scrap plastic, or I had some plastic, scrap whatever, to put the magnets where you want them, sort of, more or less at the same height as the shell, but they don't have to be the same height, and they don't even have to be straight. Just kind of put those there, and these magnets are small, but they're really strong, and so they want to stick to everything. So just like everything else, you use hot glue to put it where you want it, and then add the epoxy and make sure that it's nice and secure. and then build up the same thing on this other side where they're going to go. And I was pretty far off on some of these pieces where I put them, but as long as it holds the magnet, it works okay, because once it's covered in epoxy, it's nice and strong. So once these magnets are down, you just put an extra magnet on top of each one, and then put the epoxy on top of that. And it's kind of funny because this, I use JB Weld 2-part epoxy, and this part it's just called steel. So there's a metal element to it, and it's magnetic. So once you make that epoxy, I'd put it on a toothpick to put epoxy on it, and it would just jump. All of it was just jump onto the magnet. So it was really great. I should have made a video of that. But once you have an extra magnet on top of each one, and there's epoxy on each one, then you just stick the top part on. And I put weight on it, and I waited 24 hours. I wanted to make sure it was nice and set and good before I tried to pull it off, because there's a strong magnet, so I wanted to make sure it wasn't going to come off when I pulled it off. So that's, works really well. I added some extra epoxy once it was on there. I put this one right onto the PCB because the PCB is nice and secure with screws. I just had to make sure I didn't glue it to the side of the case so that I could still pull this out if I needed to. And I have needed to, because there's still some junk that gets under the screen sometimes. But finishing stuff, clean up extra residual flux using alcohol, clean it all up. I've been showing this off to people, and a common question is, well, is it going to catch fire? Is it a fire hazard? And I don't know. I would think that anything that's a fire hazard, if the Game Boy gets really hot at any place on it, that it would also be sort of a melt hazard for a plastic case. I'll have to do lots of testing to make sure that it's safe to use. So it works really well. I'll just attach the PCBs together with the ribbon cable, and then it just snaps shut right where those magnets went. And I think it just looks really nice. I'm really happy with how it turned out. So I'm off to do some of that testing to make sure that it's safe to play. Thanks for watching. I'll make a nice exhibition video where I show off some of its features and make jokes about it.